Hello, friends, and welcome back to r/ProRevenge. Let's start our video with a story in which our OP had to face his 54-year-old beggar brother. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. My brother is a beggar. So some backstory. I'm the youngest of 6 siblings and the only girl. The 4th brother is the one I'm referring to, and though each of us have had difficult things happen to us, the rest of us have turned into reasonable, responsible adults with families, careers, etc. My brother is not. He's had trouble with alcohol, smoking, and relationships since his teen years. So in 2017, my brother was going through a very difficult divorce and is also the father of 2 teenage children. Due to an incident which he attacked my niece's boyfriend, he was sent to jail for a month. Upon his release, my parents were worried he'd be homeless, and since nearly all my family live out of state and my husband, children, and I are the only blood family he has here, we reluctantly took him in until he was back on his feet. My family up north had contributed to helping him with his legal fees to cover his jail costs along with the cost of his divorce. Note that there were some things during his marriage and behaviors we were unaware of, as we're not particularly close and naturally one wants to defend and take the side of their sibling. When I was growing up, we were all very close and always looked out for one another, so these values are hardwired into my brain, and I'm also the kind of person who genuinely wants to help others. So my brother moves in, and my husband and I thought it would only be for a couple of months until he would put some money aside and start saving up for an apartment. We didn't expect much as far as financial support, but we did expect him to pay for his own food, gas, and help out around the house as far as cleaning and whatnot. At first, things are okay. He helps clean, doesn't bother us too much as we all worked, and other than the occasional comment regarding his homophobic views or complaining about his ex or his kids not contacting him, all was relatively okay. As things progress for a couple weeks, things start becoming stressful. He stops cleaning up after himself, gets annoyed and angry at minor things such as the litter box not being scooped yet refusing to do it, and starts complaining about how expensive everything is. Like when I told him he needed to get his own cell phone because he was constantly asking to use mine. Around this time, he began going out drinking nearly every night at a local dive bar, which is about a 5-minute drive from my house. That's when he met the girlfriend. Now keep in mind, I didn't know how bad his drinking problem was as he was able to hold down a job at the time. The girl he met was also an alcoholic who was living on disability benefits and was 52 years old, still living at home. I immediately did not like her as she expressed she was jealous of my brother's children and had poor decision-making skills. So the two of them go out nearly every night, and my brother starts spending any money he has on going out, clothes for her, etc., plus returning back to the house at ungodly hours and making noise which would wake us up. This is a month into living with us, and my husband and I began to realize he's not saving up any money to get himself out of our house. Keep in mind, my brother was 54 at the time, so his complete ignorance as to how to manage money was surprising to say the least. At one point, he did give my husband $100 to help, but when my husband used the money to buy steak and other food for our family, my brother complained that he didn't get anything, even though he'd come to eat our leftovers on top of his own food and wasn't helping with any of the bills. 2 months in, my husband and I knew we were going to have to set a deadline for him, and whether he was ready or not, he was going to have to go. He was also showing his anger issues at this point and had raised his voice and gotten in my husband's face for an ill-perceived slight against his girlfriend. He would also have the girlfriend over without telling us when we were out of the house, where we expressed that we didn't like people we didn't know very well in our home. We also told him if he violated the "don't yell and slam doors" rule again, we'd kick him out, which he agreed to. Come not a week later, after we told him this, I was returning home from work and my husband calls me that he's kicking my brother out for violating the rule. I had no problem with this. I don't remember what he'd exactly done, but when I got home, my husband was in the process of packing up my brother's clothing and possessions and told me my brother had left with the girlfriend, but had left his keys where my husband had immediately taken our house key back. In the middle of my husband loading everything into bags, my brother returned and we explained to him not only did he violate the house rule that he'd agreed to, but he'd also taken advantage of our generosity and we'd had enough. My brother first starts saying he's sorry and that he has no place to go and that he doesn't mean what he says when he's angry, blah, blah, blah. My hubby and I both tell him that we're done and that we'd warned him that would happen, and we're not budging. He immediately gets angry and gets in my husband's face screaming, "You are the biggest effing a-holes I've ever met. You are so effing selfish." My husband remained calm, though. I could tell he wanted to slug him and demanded my brother to leave our property. My brother immediately turns to me and yells, "I'll remember this, that you turned on me." He then leaves after packing his stuff into his car. The following day, he tries to call me to apologize, but I don't budge. He then proceeds to call members of my family, claiming my husband is controlling me and I don't care about him. Luckily, my family didn't believe him and were actually impressed that I hadn't kicked him out sooner. A few weeks go by and I discover he's been living in his car. He'd tried to stay at his girlfriend's house, but her mom kicked him out. He also stopped by my house again asking to use my cell phone or my microwave, where we told him he could no longer ask for favors. We've not really spoken much since. As of right now, he's unemployed, fired for losing his temper with another employee, has no relationship with his son, and his daughter he only contacts to ask for money or a favor. He's still living in his car after living with a roommate because he walked out and refused to pay his part of the bills. I do still worry about him, but due to my own emotional health, I have to keep my distance, and my husband has refused to have any relationship with him whatsoever. A couple of my brothers still talk to him from time to time, along with my mom. Glad you got him out of the house without becoming violent. But this is a prime lesson for others. This is why you never invite a druggie into your home or enable them, especially when they have a history of violence. And our next story. Talk trash, I'll fire you and do it myself. So this happened last year. My family home has a deck off to the side for our now non-existent above-ground pool. It collapsed in a windstorm and was in rough shape from poor staining and sealing to the wood. It needed to be sanded and painted. So my father decided to hire his girlfriend and her mother to sand and paint it. Judith, yes, this is her actual name, and her mother had been working on it for literal weeks, even when they recruited their family to help. The deck's not that big, just saying. At the time, I lived at home and was struggling to find a job, and my depression was hitting me like a brick. Before this, I never really had a problem with this woman, but boy howdy, her true colors came out this day. I was upstairs when I heard my front door open and Judith's voice rang out how I needed to get out here. In a panic, I pull on pants and go out to find she's having a fit over a dead animal in the yard. Sad but true. We live in the country, and shockingly, dead animals are not uncommon. So I pick up the carcass and take it out to dispose of. Whatever this may say about me, bear in mind dead animals are common in the country. I really didn't want to dig a hole in 90-degree weather after there hadn't been much rain in a few weeks. This was not the right response. She goes off on a tirade to her mother about all my apparent shortcomings and that I should get off my butt and do more. I was livid. I called my father, who instantly told me to just stay away from her. He'll deal with her later. To her mother's credit, she tried to reason with her and sort of calms her down. After only 2 hours of them working, they leave for some reason. At the time, my father was giving me the impression he suspected they weren't working the full hours he was paying them, $10 an hour for both. But he never discussed it with me. All the while they were gone was going nuclear, like, how the F dare she crap talk me on my property? So after they leave, I decided they were fired. I grabbed up the rollers and stain and began to finish the rest, which I suspect they would have tried to drag out for another few days, if not a week, to bleed as much cash out of my father. I managed to get most of it done before they got back a few hours later. They were owed money and their pay for the day, so I handed her the envelope of cash and told her simply, "You're done." Dumbfounded, she asked what that meant. I said, "You're done," and I began to walk away. She calls after me, "Why are you being so rude?" I shout back, unable to hold my rage, "I'm just doing what you said, getting off my butt and doing something." Surprisingly, this did not go over well. At the time, I was on my hands-free headset with a friend, and she could hear Judith's meltdown from about 20 feet away, telling me off, calling my daddy as if he'll side with her and punish me. I'm his favorite. And then making threats at me when I'm not on the phone with him. "That sounds like a threat, Judy. Maybe I should call the police in regards to that," was about my response as I waved my phone in my hand. The presence of my friend on the other end of the call kept me calm. Obviously, this was more a bluff, as I would have needed to cancel the call with my friend and call them. I crap you not, the woman makes a lurch at me, and her mother holds her back. At this point, I'm not afraid to get hit if I can send her to jail. They eventually get back to their car, hang out in my driveway for 10 minutes, and then leave. All the while, I'm finishing up the deck out of sheer effing spite. She's not allowed back to our house. Also, no, I did not get in trouble. Dad knows I have a high threshold for bullcrap, as my sister was a lunatic, so when I snap, he knows it's thoroughly justified. Also, I get the impression she tried to chew him up about the whole thing, and he probably got fed up with her annoying him, so he decided to end the relationship with her. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.